Welcome to Storytime Fun, boys and girls. We hope you enjoy. Today's story is out of the Walt Disney Storyland book. And today's story is called Darby O'Gill. Now, Ireland, as you may know, is a green and lovely land. There's many 1,000 of Irishmen there in every valley and town. But there are others in Ireland, too, who make their homes snug underground. You may not see one of them from New Year's Eve to New Year's End, but they are there. Make no mistake. They're the little people, the leprechauns. A canny lot of wee folk are they, dressed in their suits of green, and many's the crock of gold they have miserly hidden away. But will they share it with human folk? They'll give you a trick instead. Take the case of Darby O'Gill, which happened not long ago. Darby was chasing his horse one night. The skittish mare led him across the sloping meadow and off toward the mountains beyond. Now Darby knew as well as the next what dangers that mountain held, for it had the name of Knocknashiga, the hill of the fairy folk. And sure enough, elfin music seemed to rise up from the place. Darby heard it plain enough. It came from the open well, and a strange sort of light seemed to rise from there too. Well, Darby was a man with his share of wonder. He bent down to peek down the hole, and as he did, the fairy music grew wilder. Darby heard his horse give one strange wild neigh. Then he felt her hooves upon his shoulders, and he tumbled down that well. Ah! When he came to himself, he was flat on his back, lying on the floor of a cave. Suddenly, spang! A wee man landed on Darby's middle. Darby waved his stick. "You wicked little creatures!" he cried. "What's your stick?" cried one of the leprechauns, and Darby's own trusty blackthorn flew out of his hands and beat its master's head. "Come on," said the other little leprechaun. "We'll take you to our king." Well, Darby had nothing better to do, so he followed the little man. Many were the wonderful sights he saw. In those caves deep underground, he saw leprechauns shoveling crocks full of gold. He saw others cobbling small fairy shoes. "Well, Darby O'Gill," cried the little people's king, laying aside his pipes, "I'm pleased and delighted to see you." "Thank you, sir," Darby said. "Sit down," said the king, and waved his hand at a chest by the foot of the throne. "Drop the lid, man," he said as Darby just stared. "It's only an old chest of jewels." Darby closed the lid and sat down. Then Brian, the king, showed him the treasures here and there scattered about the room. "I declare to you my soul," cried Darby O'Gill. "When I tell this at home, they'll never believe me." "Ho! You'll not do that, Darby," said the king with a smile. "Once you're here, there's no going back, you know." But I've got to go back," cried Darby. "I know," said the little king. "You can say goodbye to the tears and the troubles of the world outside. There's nothing but fun and dancing here. Be a good lad now and give us a tune." "Well," said Darby with a glint in his eye, I'm no great hand with the pipes or harp, but give me my old fiddle, and I can play you a tune worth going a mile of ground to hear." "Grand, grand," said Brian the king. But I'll have to go home," said Darby O'Gill, "to get the fiddle, you see." "None of your tricks," said King Brian sternly. "I said you were here to stay." He gave a snap of his fingers, and a fine old fiddle and its bow dropped into Darby's hands. "Go ahead," said King Brian. "Give us a good one." Darby tucked the fiddle under his chin and tried a chord or two. They sounded so magnificent that a bold plan came to him. "I'll play you the fox chase," said Darby O'Gill. For he knew that the little people loved both the dance and the hunt. They could not resist them at all. Well, he played the gathering of the huntsmen and the hounds and the start of the hunt. "Off we go," cried Darby, tapping his foot, and the little men started to dance. He played them the long, lone sound of the horn and the fine, fast music of the chase. You could hear the hounds baying and the riders galloping. Soon the little people were racing off to mount their white hunters. With the king at their head, they circled the cave with Darby fiddled the baying of a hound. "Tally-ho!" cried the king with a crack of his whip, and the mountain side opened before him. Woohoo! Then the moonlight flooded in, dazzling Darby's eyes, but he kept on fiddling as never before and outstreamed the king with his hunters behind him toward the night sky, filled with the glory of all the stars above. When Darby was alone in the cave, he laid down the fiddle and started after them. But of a sudden, he thought of the chest of jewels beside the throne. Back he went and lifted the lid and began to stuff his pockets with jewels. A strange grating sound made him turn his head. The mountainside was closing again. Darby reached for one last handful of jewels, but he saw there was not a moment to lose. So he raced for the opening. He narrowed now to a crack in the mountain side. Oh, out he dove headlong, and as he sprawled in the night-chilled grass with a crash, the mountain behind him closed. He shuddered at his narrow escape. Whew! Then his hand went into his jewel-crammed pocket. Not a thing was there. Deeper he dug, still only cloth. And then at the bottom he found a hole. As he had fled from the cave, all the jewels had trickled out. So that was how it came about that Darby O'Gill came back to his home from a night with the little people, with not a glint of a treasure to show. There were even those who doubted his word. But you and I understand. Well, that's it for today. We'll see you next time.